Hello followers, my name is Matt Plantier. I have with me today Wes Drake. Wes, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Today I'm the Chief Operating Officer for OmniResponse, software engineering company out of El Paso. I've been there for about 2.5 years. Started out there as the Director of DoD Sales. Moved over to the Chief Operating position about a year ago. Prior to that, I was a Solutions Architect for Department of Defense with Verizon. And prior to that, I was an Army veteran, 20-year Army veteran, retired in 2019. I was a communicator most of that time. Did some personal security stuff. Did some things with I was a communicator the whole time, like I mentioned, but about 12 years of that in the special operations components. On the personal security side, I've done everything from senior officers and NCOs in the military to congressional delegates, et cetera. So obviously a tactician for 20 years with the technical attributes kind of sprinkled on top of that.
Gotcha. Well, first of all, thank you for your service.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
And would you say you deal with a lot of schools, universities?
Yeah, so school safety, university safety is part of our capabilities that we do offer. So we do a lot of different security consulting. So when we go in for a site survey, we'll help with the security posture, what the physical security looks like, things of that nature. So most of our organization is comprised of either previous law enforcement or DoD guys in order to be able to facilitate those type of environments with school safety and
Excellent.
Active shooter type environments.
Those are the people you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm great you brought that, or happy you brought that up, because I'm talking to a few different universities right now, and it's the end of the school year. They're looking towards next semester, the first semester, and they're evaluating: do we need more cameras? Do we need more access control? What solutions should we be looking to implement? Let's say put yourself in their shoes. How would you start your evaluation process?
Yeah, so the first thing I would look at is obviously internal, right? So what processes are we doing today to secure that as a facility, right? And typically the best place to start is physical security. So do we have our physical security in place? Like you mentioned, the cameras, are we doing everything that we can in that aspect? And this will evolve. It'll be kind of a phased approach to what you're looking at and where you kind of go from there. So on the physical security side, you're right, like cameras, door lock capabilities, panic alarms, rehearsals, right? That's one of the biggest things. People put different security measures into place and then don't rehearse those security measures. Mm-hmm. It's the number one left out. It takes time. It's not that fun. And people get the mindset that, oh, it's not going to happen here, right? And that's unfortunate, because what you'll flesh out, even if you do it once a quarter, you're going to learn something every time. As you do an after action review of that, you will learn every time that you miss something, quite frankly, or something you could do better. So yeah, I think you look at the physical security, you look at the alerting, you look at really commercial off the shelf equipment that's out there and technologies. And then you've got to decide how technology can save the university money, right? What is your ROI for doing this, right? Obviously, it's saving lives, which is great, which is why we like to call this critical. Mm-hmm. But it can be more than that. It can save money. It can reduce fighting. It can reduce medical incidents, and it can increase the response time for first responders to get there and actually solve a challenge that may be taking place. So creating those efficiencies, creating different ROIs, learning and understanding the technology that is available. And the things that I'm seeing in the school safety and active shooter kind of spaces, it's important to depict if it is a prevention and monitoring tool, or if it's actually a tool that has some sort of reaction, right? We see that all too often, different tools that we're saying, hey, we have a school safety solution. And then when you drill down in it and you look into it, you'll find out that it's an application that's a user interface that someone has to hit drop-down menus during a time of crisis and work their way through this application, which is quite frankly just never going to happen.
So not a full-scale solution.
That's right, which is where we like to call it a comprehensive solution, right? Like you said, full-scale or comprehensive. The nice thing is folks like Oosto doing the facial recognition, Zero Eyes doing the weapon detection, OmniResponse with the platform and integrating all these different sensors and assets, whether that's robotics and drones. One of the common misnomers is, oh, I can't afford any of that, right? I think we talked before about that, right? When reality is these things are available, and the great thing to understand is that they can be scaled. So you don't have to get the Cadillac right out of the gate. Look at those vulnerable positions, the choke points, the entry points, do a heat map of where you've experienced crisis in the past. Learn those vulnerable positions as that security director and apply these measures in those places first. And you can always expand and scale as budgets evolve or grants come in or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, excellent. I'm glad you brought up the reactionary, because it kind of leads me into the second question I have is, with all the protests that are going on, it seems, you open up the news, there's a new campus shutting down, classes are being canceled. And I think one of the biggest aspects of that is the property damage that was happening. I think I read there was a library, it was $750,000 to repair that library. So how do we proactively intervene before it gets to violence, before it gets to damage?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that come to mind to do that. I think as we know this is a thing and it's an evolving thing that we're seeing at multiple locations, something I think we have to start looking at is where, again, those physical security vulnerabilities. So if there was a protest, if I was a protester, where would I do that at? If I was trying to make a statement at this campus, you can figure that out, especially if it's a large crowd. Where is that typically going to take place, right? And then, apply some measures there, whether it's providing barricades prior to, changing traffic routing, changing foot traffic, where it can go or where it can't go. That sounds simple, right? And obviously it's not. But those are kind of the starting point. Can we manipulate any of this to where we don't create an open space that's conducive to do something like this? And can we confine them to a street or, something to where it creates a spread out approach? They're spread out to cause any damage to the property, like you mentioned, by rushing into a certain location or something like that. However, again, though, I'm going to overlay the technology piece to where, you can leverage these technologies to mitigate those things from happening. For example, the platform that we were talking about in Oosto, being able to identify when people are fighting or people are, doing the various things, standing, kneeling, sitting, whatever, for a prolonged period of time, whatever the anomaly may be. We can detect those things and we can alert on those things. And then based on alerting on those things, we have the platforms and the capabilities to initiate door locks automatically based on alerting criteria and different things like that. So I think it's important to kind of look at it both ways, physically and technology. How do we create these efficiencies? How do we stop them from entering our location? I'll foot stomp that over and over again. Technology overlays inside the parking lots, inside of exterior structures, with the facial recognition, with the weapon detection, with the gunshot detection. You couple those three together and you have triggers that are removing human interface to be able to operate those. That's where we're getting the efficiencies. That's where we're getting the ROIs. So going back to the first question, we were talking about the ROI piece there it is, right? So if you avoided one of those scenarios, then you just paid for your security platform for multiple years, right? So we've got to get into that mindset. We've got to get out of the mindset that it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen here. And we've got to face reality, and we've got to look at how to protect the people that we're responsible for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great stuff. I guess let's pivot away, from the protests a little bit and talk about the future of universities and even K through 12. What do you think with rising technology? What should we be doing to protect the students of the future?
Yeah, that's a great question that kind of hits home for me. I went to orientation this past school year, and my kids had just their high school. They just built a brand new high school. So when we went in for orientation, I quickly realized that there was no security involved in design efforts in that school, right? So what I mean by that is you have full tiers that parallel each other that are all glass, right? So essentially there's 4 tiers that come out one side. They're all glass walls, interior and exterior. So you could essentially have one gunman shoot through 4 tiers of this structure, right? Additionally, the classroom internal walls, 2 classrooms side by side both share a glass wall facing the interior. And this is a 5A high school in Houston, right? So my first question while I was in there, I did not understand why we're creating infrastructure like that with so many vulnerabilities that we're now going to have to protect against. And I think a security team came in after the fact. The standard operating procedure for those 2 open face walls was there is a wooden structure that can be pulled out from a wall, almost like a curtain that is pulled by one classroom. And then there's an adjoining door that the kids from one classroom are supposed to go into the other after that wall has been formed. And they're supposed to reside in there until it takes place. I think just watching your reactions to me explaining that.
It kind of reminds me of when I was a kid, I would hide under blankets and assume the monster would just disappear.
Thank you very much. I felt the same way. So as far as moving forward, I think we need the security teams involved from the very get-go, right? We come in after the fact, we take a vulnerability, we try to make it the best that we can, and then you're working with what you have, right? Instead of having some forethought prior to and saying, hey, we're not going to create these vulnerabilities, and we're going to put some of these security measures in place as we're constructing this thing, would have been a much better effort, in my opinion. However, putting these things in, like I just said, during the construction or as we evolve, I think that's what we have to be looking at. We evolved from push button alerting. However, we thought we did, right? And then as we see, there's agencies out there that are applying that again and saying that you must or will have a push button alerting inside of a classroom. It was brought up the other day, why are we still thinking about these archaic ideas of analog type systems in order to solve these problems when there's so much more available and out there? One of the things is outreach, obviously. People knowing and understanding what capabilities and technologies are out there that they can leverage. So there's an education piece there. But also, putting the appropriate people into those security positions, right? Just because I was a security guy at one point doesn't mean I still am, doesn't mean I'm relevant, doesn't mean I study it, any of that, right? So, I think that it should be a combination of all those things put together in order to safeguard these children and these facilities that people are either working in or going to school.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking with you, and the insights were incredible. So thanks, Wes.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. And so Wes Drake from OmniResponse. Check him out. And as always, check out oosto.ai.